Shakespeare influence will be seen in the modern cinema, Western philosophy, and therefore the English language. Similar to trade and literature, within the history of the English language, William Shakespeare is basically the considered of the best author and playwriting, and it revolutionized the European trade by the raising the bar for what may will be accomplished through inventive chapters, history, language, and genre. Influence after Shakespeare, popular works such as Arcadia by Sir Philip Sidney and essays by Michael Montage influence his ideas, while his plays were during Elizabethan age, later Shakespearean works were composed during the Jacobean period, underscoring the social order being questioned. Shakespeare explored the social dynamics, interpersonal dynamics, and the role of their religion in politics. Influence on writing styles. Shakespeare writing among or foremost inspired in Western literature. Shakespeare sometimes did have never been done before. He connected verse, thread, poetry. Shakespeare simply utilized the English language as a tool to create an effect on the audience. Has say the Canadian author Stephen Marche, he was a master of line treats language and a significant contributor to the event of the English language, as well know it today. The language and norm of English were not standardized before or during Shakespearean's time, but as they were well known within the late of 17th, 18th centuries, Shakespeare plays assist with the English language standardization. Shakespeare made a big contribution of the English language because he introduced latest vocabulary, phrases that have enhanced the language and made it more vibrant and expressive. Should be considered the nation language greatest playwright after Shakespeare. Shakespeare believed that there was a crisis but the public standards and individual conviction. And this notion came to dominate the trade until trade closed in 1642. The playwright that came after him were mostly realistic, sarcastic, and anti-romantic, with a strong emphasis on those two archetypal settings and the core.
Bunyan, born November 1678 in Elston, Bedfordshire, England, and he died in August 31, 1688 in London. Bunyan was an English minister and preacher, whereby he underwent a period of spiritual crisis while serving in Oliver Cromwell's army in the English Civil Wars. And Bunyan, regarding his learning in reading and writing, he achieved it in a great British secondary school. On the other hand, among his notables works were Grace Abounding, The Holy War, The Life and Death of Mr. Bachman, The Pilgrim's Progress. Therefore, Bunyan's prose style in the most of literary history was often characterized by a few brief passages. According to Samuel Taylor in 1976, as the lower style of English, and Robert Southey in 1976 says that it is a homespun style. As this observation have shown, Bunyan's style is more than decorative, and Ifre Evans, 1678, considers that Bunyan is endowed with a great capacity for detail and anecdote, for the description of the environment, and for the creation of dialogue. In his allegory, I would combine everything in such a way that his narrative, despite the spiritual significance, become a realistic account, contemporary with the author and authentic. For instance, as a preacher, he was tireless and so popular that he always drew crowds. His literary career, which began in 56 with the book Some Gospel Truth, continued until his death. In total, 60 of his work in prose and poetry were published. His most famous pilgrimage in 1678 was much enlarged in the second and third edition.
The epic poem of John Milton. I would like to give you a short biography about John Milton. According to Stephen, John Milton was a historian, journalist, and poet of the 17th century. Milton studied at Cambridge University to become a priest, but he decided to be a poet and writer. He also wrote a lot about political issues. He was in jail for this thing because he liked to write about those things. Other was he also was a believer of freedom as a Protestant. Unfortunately, he had a difficult year in 1652, a difficult life. First, he became blind at the age of 43. The cause of his blindness is unknown, but bilateral retinal detachment or glaucoma are the most likely explanation. Due to his blindness, he was forced to dictate his prose and verse to amanuenses. One of these was Matthew Marvell. Well, secondly, according to the article Poetry Foundation, the epic poem of John Milton was published in the year 1667. But he revised and augmented this version in 16 1774. But first of all, um, this poem um, is about the fall of grace of Adam and Eve, and it tells that the it tells the different things about good and evil in the world. Um, this point is very important in many scholars because um, it is it it doesn't use rhyme in the verse and prose of this poem, but other thing it tells the biblical story that I mentioned. It is very important. It is the point. It is important in the English language. Um, I would like to mention that uh, as a poem, um, it teaches you about the important things about good and evil, the greatest point in the history.
Hello, my name is Noel Aguilar. Well, I will continue to explain the epic of John Milton. The Paradise Lost is the most significant point in the world of literature, and his creation provide the new ideologies about the good and evil. Also, in other hand, it indicate the many scholars consider the Paradise Lost is the most important or the one of the greatest poems in the English language. It tells about the biblical story of falls of the fall of the from the grace of Adam and Eve and the extension of the humanity in language which is a supreme achievement the of rhymes and sounds. They said in the Britannica 2020, according to the Summers and the 2022, said that the epic poem was written in a blank verse and follows a set of meters. Meter does not have a rhymes. And Milton employs a number of techniques to disguise a repetitive rhymes and patterns of type of rhyme, what appear to be strange pronunciations of oldie broken words. Has Milton mixed the rules black of black verse, and to make his line flows. This point is made with the flows of the Milton. Also, Man Blur in the 2020 explained that the poems, the Paradise Lost, based in the book of Genesis in the Bible. In this point, they describe the fall of Satan as well the decision may be the Adam and Evil and the terrible consequence that result from this act of disobedience. To conclude, the UK ISIS in the 2018 said or state that in this epic point Milton used imaginary dictions and religious subjects in Paradise Lost to demonstrate the strong the Milton have a strong conviction and he held throughout in his life. Also, Milton in that point used the imaginary diction and his epic poem subject. For example, the Bible subject in that way is the evil and the damned. Also, Milton represented hate, a strong faith throughout the Paradise Lost. Thank you.
I have two questions to Nayelis. Nayelis, what do you think what is the difference of Shakespeare from the uh, author of his time? And the second,
He could mix reality and fantasy in comedies like no one had ever done. One of his strengths is the characters and even more so the language he used for each of them. To do this, he more masterfully used metaphors and word games.
question is something about what I say. Uh, uh, what are the contribution to the English language?
About his contribution were introduction of new vocabulary and phrases that have enriched the language, and Shakespeare added a considerable number of words to the English language compared to addition to English vocabulary made in other eras.
The first question to my partner Noel. What is the theme of Paradise Lost?
Well, my side, that's an interesting question. Obviously, hello again. The point, the first word that is theme or the central theme is the demand, the first disobedience. In other words, the theme of this point is disobedience, because Milton tells the stories of Adam and Eve, disobedience, explaining how and why it occurs, and the situation. It, it's within the large context of the Satan rebellion and the Jesus resurrection. Also, tells Adam and Satan disobedience to make him understanding the danger Satan and the humankind pose.
The second question is who was the muse of John Milton?
Well, that is an interesting question, my the answer that I can bring you is due to blindness. He was forced to dictate his verse and prose to amanuenses who copied them for him. Um, One of these was Andrew Andrew Marvell.
Where is the poem Paradise Lost?
Paradise Lost. It was published in 1667 and it was wrote for the poet John Milton. It is about the biblical history of the fall of grace of Adam and Eve, and it gives new ideologies about good and evil.
What is the impact of the poem Paradise Lost on feminism?
Paradise Lost had a significant impact on the development of feminism in the 1920s. It helps to eradicate the misogyny and helps other writers like Emily Brown.
Now it's time to the questions. My first question is for the Alexander. Alexander, the first question is: what are the influence of Shakespeare after his legacy?
Thank you, Noel, for the question. Um, the influence after Shakespeare, after his legacy, and the impact of on contemporary plays, movies, poems, and grammar rules of English. Shakespeare have the greatly influence because he's creating new words, tropes, building relationship between writers and patrons.
Well, that's very interesting. But my second question is, how many plays William Shakespeare wrote?
And the second was how many plays William Shakespeare wrote. It's believed that he wrote around 39 plays classified in comedy, tragedy, historical drama. And on the other hand, it also Shakespeare wrote 154 sonnets and four lyrical plays.